Yay! It's the Security Weekly News. Sorry, we were given a whole different title before the show that involved other things that I can't say in public. But this is episode 383 of the Security Weekly News. I'm Doug White, and it is Friday, the 3rd of May, 2024. We got Weird Al, Docker, OT, Gitlab, credit monitoring, Dropbox, Cisco AI, Aaran Leyland, and more on this edition of the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News.
Make sure you subscribe to the Below the Surface podcast by Eclipsium in partnership with CRA. We've had the pleasure of speaking with some amazing guests, including Zeno Kova, Richard Hughes, Vincent Zimmer, and more. We discuss topics related to firmware and supply chain security, uncovering those pesky vulnerabilities that lie, well, below the surface in your environments. You can find all the episodes and subscribe by visiting eclipsium.com/podcast or searching for Below the Surface in your favorite podcast catcher.
Yeah, all right, it's the Security Weekly News live from the island of Elba. I'm Doug White. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button as if your life depended on it, because, well, maybe it does. Maybe. All right, we all love Docker. You know, I love Docker, you love Docker, we all scream for Docker, whatever. But Docker's kind of scary when you think about it, right? Ephemeral objects being spun up on your local machine that were created by a guy named Sid Greatneck. I mean, really, I mean, I'm not even making that up, right? I mean, it's like an ephemeral object that who you don't know who wrote it. I mean, what could go wrong? I mean, so this report showed that 3 large-scale campaigns had been targeting Docker Hub users since early 2021. Now, I have some confusion about exactly what they were getting at here, and we'll talk about that. But they've basically been creating millions, with an M, of repositories that pushed malware and phishing sites. Now, if you and just a little background. So if you don't know what Docker is, it's a tool that lets you spin up ephemerals. And ephemerals, if you don't know what that is a fancy computer science term for things that just sort of get created on the fly, do their job, and then they cease to exist. So basically, Mr. Meeseeks, right? It's a Meeseeks box. And so you need to run a quick Python script. You pop up an ephemeral Linux with Python, execute the script, and poof, all done. And then the ephemeral goes away. So you don't have to set up a whole workspace, and all this is just on the fly. And of course, you can do whatever you want to do with it. And it's super, super cool if you've never dealt with Docker. I mean, there's probably a pre-built Docker on the repository that does just about anything you can possibly imagine. So it's very, very useful. Now, like any repository, anyone or anything or any group of things or people or whatever can get an account and publish public objects there. Now, you're warned, of course, just like all repositories, to use this at your own risk. Now, JFrog security researchers found that around 20% of the 15 million repositories on Docker, 20% contained malicious content. 4.6 million repositories that contain, and now this is the weird part, they contained no Docker images and could not be run using Kubernetes or Docker. And Kubernetes, if you don't know, is a Docker manager. And they went and found that 2.81 million of these repositories were part of 3 very large campaigns. That made me feel a little bit better, because I probably wouldn't be using a repository that doesn't have a Docker in it. So I didn't worry as much after I read the headline, where I thought, are the Dockers corrupted? But the reality was, it seems like they're just literally using the site as a repository for all kinds of things. Now, the largest number of these repositories was about 9.7% of the total, and they had 1.5 million repositories, and it was called Downloader. And basically what was in this repository was automatically generated text with SEO text that promoted pirate content and video game cheats. So they're basically using it to link SEO content. So this is where they pump the browser or pump the search engines up so that they can get their links at the top of the browser. So people click this looking for video game cheats. They looking for pirated content and wares sites. So basically in this one, the payload was a payload that caused most antivirus engines to warn of a generic Trojan. So that means when you tried to download it, it popped up a warning. But guess what? It also displays an installation dialog that asks the user to download and install the advertised software. And if you do it, the malicious code, it gets installed and it gets scheduled to run on startup and at regular intervals, so you can't get rid of it very easily. JFrog said they weren't sure, but it might be part of a larger malware operation, which could involve adware, monetization schemes, click-throughs, all that kind of stuff. Another one that was on there is called ebook phishing, was a set of repositories that basically directed you to a site which promised full copies of ebooks. So, you wanted to read Moby Dick, you want to read it for free. And well, here's a link when you search for it that says, here's a free ebook of Moby Dick. And you click for it. It did have a pop-up asking for a credit card number just for validation. They weren't going to charge you anything. And then it steals your credentials and your credit card information. After notification by JFrog, Docker said they have removed all these repositories from Docker Hub. So I think this is just another example of using a repository to host your content by borrowing the domain's credibility, because people go, it's a Docker Hub. Okay. The lesson here is you can't trust anyone these days. But we know that already. So the lesson for us is that you probably need to think about ways to control access to repositories that are coming on your site, which is problematic in and of itself. But if you have users that are using Dockers or they download repositories and whatever, and you trust Docker Hub, well, that's going to be a problem. So I'm not sure what the best approach is here. I've been thinking about it all day, but how do you trade off the convenience and efficiency of letting people use repositories? So, I need this, click, I got it. Or I have to go through a whole series of hoops and gyrations to get access to a repository I could have used and got my code done 16 weeks ago while all these committees met and reviewed it. So I think we're going to have to figure out, how do we trust repositories? How do we evaluate repositories and determine that they're safe? Or otherwise we're going to get crazy stuff. I mean, I could go right now and start uploading malware into my Docker repository as soon as we're done here, and I could make millions of euros in scam dollars. Wait a minute. See ya. No, but seriously, you should think about this vector, because it's a really, really broad vector that covers a lot of different kinds of sites. And we see stories all the time about, PyPy. Now we're seeing Docker repositories and so forth. I worry about this a lot. The U.S. government says that pro-Russian hacktivists are scanning for and breaking into unsecured operational technology, which is called OT, in the critical infrastructure sector. Well, I think we all know that, really. But this is an interesting report. The joint advisory came out from count them, 6 U.S. government agencies, which includes, I'm going to give you the alphabet soup: CISA, FBI, NSA, EPA, DOE, and USDA, and FDA. So that's the FBI, the National Security Administration, the Environmental Protection Agency, the Department of Energy, the United States. I don't know what USD is. I don't know what it stands for. I know what it is, but I don't know what it stands for. And the FDA, which is the Food and Drug Administration, as well as, there's more, the Multi-State Information Sharing and Analysis Center, which is called MSISEC, the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity, or CCCS, and the UK National Cybersecurity Center, or NCSC. I didn't even think that many government agencies could agree on whether it was night and day at the same time. I mean, that's a lot of acronyms, but all of them together. So OT, if you're not familiar with this kind of terminology, refers to the hardware and the software that's used to manage physical processes and components, typically in manufacturing. It can be in pretty much any of this infrastructure stuff. So this is all part of a bigger ICS SCADA type world of things, which, they have their own acronyms, their own conferences, their own certifications, their own magazines, and so on and so forth. They have different terminology for everything though. But ICS is a sector that has long resisted security, using the old security obscurity trope. Hell, Jimmy, nobody ever going to figure out how this old rig we built works. Don't worry about it. And of course, the old, this thing was built to last, so ICS typically has a lifespan of around 50 to 60 years. So, we built this thing up right after the war. Which war was that, Sergeant? The big one, World War II. Wait a minute. You mean all these pipes, valves, wires, death rays, and radioactive time travel chambers are being managed by these 4 pigeons, a treadmill, and some silly putty? That's right, son. And not that newfangled, politically correct, left-leaning silly putty neither. It's the old kind of silly putty that soaked up newsprint ink and was made from radioactive waste from a lead factory. Yeah, we played with that. We liked it. Anybody remember silly putty? It was some creepy stuff you bought and like squeeze it around, and you could actually squeeze it on like newsprint and it would pull away, and then it got all gross and everything. Remember the dust inside of an Etch-a-Sketch, or the iron filings in Wooly Willy, and like, your cousin told you that if you break open your Etch-a-Sketch, that dust will kill you in like 5 minutes because it's completely toxic. Yeah, these kids today with their phones, let me tell you. Anyway, this group issued a warning that pro-Russian hacktivists have been targeting insecure and misconfigured OT devices since 2022 in an attempt to disrupt operations or create nuisance effects. They did say that the hacktivists appeared to be mostly using unsophisticated techniques that manipulate ICS equipment to create nuisances. I guess that's like those kids that were causing the lights to go on and off at that high school where they called me. They were using a Python script, and they basically could access the lighting control rig because it was just wide open. They thought they'd been hacked by, Martians or something, but it was really just some kids. But I thought they should have gotten extra credit personally, but instead they got expelled. But the report did say that these recent attacks are becoming more disruptive. One of the groups that was involved is called the Cyber Army of Russia, and they claim to be behind attacks on Texas and Indiana water treatment facilities and processing plants, as well as some attacks in Poland and France. The Texas attacks caused a water tank to overflow, which didn't cause any great problem, but it is a nuisance. Now, that group has been linked to Sandworm, which is linked to the GRU, which is the Russian intelligence organization in St. Petersburg. The report warns that they are using the VNC protocol to access the human-machine interfaces, which allow them to change the underlying OT settings. VNC, if you're not familiar with it, is a common protocol. It allows remote users to access graphical user interfaces, often in Unix or Linux-based systems. So they're leveraging the VNC remote frame buffer protocol to log in, and they leverage VNS on port 5900 to access the HMIs, the human machine interfaces. And guess what? A lot of these have default credentials and weak passwords because, hey, nobody's ever going to find this thing. It's too weird. Right. But look, I don't even know how many times we evaluated these stupid things, and they always had the same argument, nobody can access it. And it's like, we accessed it, and the passwords are stuff like go insert name of local sports team here, go Piggers, or worse, they didn't have any passwords at all. It was just like a straight up, you hit enter and it logs you in. I mean, and since they connected all this stuff to the interwebs during the pandemic, they really didn't move their security at all. The security needle is still sitting on nobody can find us. Wrong. The report contains a wide range of mitigation steps to work through. I mean, look, the number one clue here, don't expose this stuff. If you have to expose it for remote users, use a VPN to access a jump host and ensure that you're using multi-factor on the VPN and the jump host, preferably tokenized. I mean, I went through this with a bunch of companies, just, going through these same steps. Firewall the hell out of this stuff and don't let anybody access this that hasn't been double verified, or you're going to find out you got serious problems. And just get off this thing about nobody can find it. It's too weird. They will. A critical Gitlab vulnerability has been added to the Known Exploited Vulnerabilities Catalog, or KEV, by the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, or CISA. It's acronym Security Weekly now. The vulnerability would allow an attacker to craft a specially formatted HTTP request, which causes a password reset email to be sent to an unverified attacker-controlled email address. Oops. The vulnerability has a CVSS score of 10, but the vulnerability itself is limited to self-hosted versions of GitLab, which means that most of the self-hosted sites are accessible only internally. But hey, that's still scary, right? And guess what? A lot of them are not internal only. They're publicly exposed. Now, the vulnerability was disclosed and patched on the 11th of January of this year, and it was added to the KEV on the 1st of May. CISA did not provide much in the way of details about the wild exploits, but proof of concept exploits for this flaw have been circulating since its discovery back in January. Attacker KB described the vulnerability as, quote, very effective and easy to exploit. Even with multi-factor preventing the takeover of the accounts, they can still create a denial of service condition by resetting all the passwords for your actual valid users and keeping them from being able to get into the system. Shadow servers said that more than 5,300 instances were publicly vulnerable 2 weeks after the discovery. But as of the 1st of May, I would expect the report to say none were found. But guess what? More than 2,100 of these are still exposed. So 2,100 of you still have out there somewhere this kind of exposure. If it is exposed, a remote attacker can exploit it quite easily. Federal civilian executive branch agencies are required to patch their GitLab instances by the 22nd of May due to the addition of the KEV. But even if you're not required to, look, patch it up, isolate it, and get it off the public internet. If you don't, you're just going to get hosed. And stop exposing yourselves, you filthy animals. Jeez. Credit monitoring and identity theft protection. Oh, I've been provided with so much identity theft and credit monitoring. I wish I could use it to pay my healthcare bills, but alas. In fact, every time there's a breach anywhere on the planet, I get notified. I get another 1-year free offer for credit monitoring and identity theft protection. And, I move on. Probably I would have to live to be about 1,000 years old at this point to take advantage of all the free credit and identity monitoring I've been provided down through the years. Pretty soon, I expect this will be offered as payment for just about everything, right? I mean, we're sorry we sold all those poisonous hot dogs. Please accept our most sincere and profound apologies. Know that those responsible have been sacked, and those responsible for the sacking have also been sacked for the good measure. And oh yeah, don't forget your free 2 years of credit reporting to assuage your concerns about the poison hot dogs. It almost makes the cynic in me wonder if maybe the credit reporting software people are the ones doing the breaches in the first place. Oh, no. Not going to go there. Remember when I said that about antivirus people being the authors of the really scary viruses like Michelangelo to sell more software and had to go into hiding for 2 years with Salman Rushdie? Yeah. I think McAfee was after me. They'd sent hitmen. But anyway, this week, United Health Group CEO Andrew Whitty was in front of the Senate Finance Committee where they exchanged jokes with each other for a while. But he was being questioned about the Change Healthcare ransomware incident where UHG will offer, wait for it, is it better security, lower healthcare rates, something that would actually help? No, it's not 1, but 2 years of credit reporting and identity theft protection. Senate Chair Ron Wyden responded to this by saying, quote, credit monitoring is the thoughts and prayers of data breaches. This is absolutely inefficient. Now, Whitty also said they would notify the victims as fast as they possibly can. Now, to be fair to Mr. Whitty, the Congress, who is asking these questions and condemning this person, could pass laws that had real teeth in them, where say, I don't know, they give you free health care for 5 years. How about $500 per incident per person per breach? And I'll bet you things would change. I like that, like free health care for 2 years if you get breached. Yeah, let's go down that road. But for some reason, our Congress can't seem to get that done. So we're stuck with collecting 10,000 years of free identity theft and credit reporting services. Granted, I've been trying to trade some of my years for healthcare coverage, but so far my insurance company won't accept it as cash because they said it was worthless, even though that's what they gave me when I got breached. Funny how that works, isn't it? I mean, I still remember a university I worked for, not the one I work for now, but a university a long time ago. They got breached because they left a whole bunch of hard drives sitting out on the loading docks and somebody stole them. They suggested that employees should have all their passwords changed, get a new social security number, change their bank account information, get a new faculty ID, and replace their own hard drives. And they offered hourly employees, which I was not one, but they offered hourly employees a half day off to do all this. No pay, though. Half day off without pay. But, which you can take anytime you want, right? You just call in and go, I'm not coming in today. Don't pay me. But if only I had known they could just offer me a year of free credit reporting and identity theft management and all would be well. This stuff makes me so mad if you couldn't tell. Just for my own amusement, I looked up Mr. Whitty's salary, $23.8 million. And that didn't include all of it. That was just like the base package. And I noticed that UHG's revenue in 2022 was $324.2 billion. You'd think they could do better. But hey, the law doesn't require it. So guess what? Mr. Whitty gets his nice paycheck and the rest of us get free credit reporting. Not that I'm bitter or anything. Oh, but your insurance premiums will be going up any day now. Well, Dropbox revealed a major attack on their systems and saw their customers' personal information being accessed by unknown entities, according to them. The attack was documented in a regulatory filing that was required by law and was related to the service called Dropbox Sign. Dropbox Sign, if you don't know about it, is a way to e-sign documents within Dropbox. You've probably used it even if you don't know about it. The filing says they became aware of it on the 24th of April and they took immediate action. But the threat actor by then had accessed data related to all users of Dropbox Sign, including emails and usernames, along with general account settings. But some users, according to the report, said had lost their phone numbers, hash passwords, auth information like API keys, OAuth tokens, and MFA keys compromised. Ew. They also detailed that it was possible that third parties who didn't even have accounts on Dropbox may have actually been compromised as well if you had signed or received a document that had been signed via Dropbox Sign. So they said those email addresses and names may have also been exposed. They did say that there was no evidence of access of the contents of users' accounts or payment information, and that other products did not appear impacted. The report says they believe the attacker compromised a service account. You know that one you set up 5 years ago with the password flatnag and never took down? Yeah, that one. And that allowed the attackers then to access an automated system config tool and on and on and on. And so they were able to move from there. Dropbox said they have reset passwords, logged users out of any devices, and are in the process of rotating all keys and tokens. Ironically, this article actually said, I'm not even saying that I interpret it that way. It literally says at the end of the article that they had not yet offered free identity and fraud protection services in wake of the incident. Talk about irony. Well, a person named Onur Aksoy in Miami, Florida, has been sentenced to 6.5 years in prison for a multi-million-dollar fake Cisco scam. Yeah. So Aksoy was selling fake Cisco equipment to a lot of people, including, wait for it, the U.S. military. Ouch. The scheme was running from 2014 until 2022 and had Aksoy overseeing at least 19 companies in New Jersey and Florida, and had 15 Amazon accounts and 10 eBay accounts for which they were selling Cisco equipment. Basically what they did, Aksoy would buy cheap networking junk from Hong Kong that was branded as new, genuine Cisco equipment. It had Cisco labels, Cisco boxes, Cisco docks, and baby blue Cisco serial cables like this one that's tattooed on my arm. You see? Can you see that? Yeah, I have one right there. Color's correct, even Pantone. But it was inside of a fancy Cisco box, but it was really old, low-end hardware with a pirated iOS and components to get around Cisco anti-piracy. Tens of thousands of these devices were sold in the United States, and some of them ended up in the U.S. military. According to the Department of Justice, the scheme generated hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue, including over $100 million from the 10 eBay accounts alone that were called pro-network entities. Cisco had sent Aksoy multiple cease and desist since 2014, but nobody did anything until some of the junk ended up in the U.S. military. Aksoy was ordered to pay restitution of $100 million to Cisco. Yeah, right, you're going to get that. And, they also required him to maybe pay some money to the victims, although Cisco was the main victim, apparently. Aksoy, who probably stashed plenty of this money offshore or at least in plastic bags buried in the forest, offered to provide identity theft. No, he has not offered to provide identity theft and credit reporting to victims or Cisco, but he might. It might be a solution. Now, look, you use AI, I use AI, we all use AI. Well, politicians are using it too. I don't even think anything is necessarily wrong with that, really. I mean, my daughter used to have to answer the phones for a congressional office, and listening to angry old Mrs. Mathers go on for hours about how alien nanobots were invading her earlobes and making her garden grow in reverse is a bit tiresome. But somebody has to do it and make notes. But could the congressman have used a bot to offer the same platitudes? I mean, we aren't really going to fix those potholes down on Maple Street, but we can offer you 1 year of free identity theft protection at no extra cost to you. Or a bot. What about a speech? Could you use a speech? Could you have an AI written speech? Is that okay? I mean, if you ask the bots to write it. How about fundraising emails? Can you have bots generate spam to send to your constituents with legitimate emails, spam? I mean, I don't know. The rules are vague. I mean, if I'm running for rat catcher in Williamsburg, just how far can I go? So this article provided some guidance for campaigns in terms of the use of AI, maybe not legal advice, but some decent advice in general. So they basically said something like, always keep a human in the loop. Well, that makes sense. Don't mislead your voters about what is AI generated, like you're actually talking to a bot when you thought you were talking to the congressman. Okay, I think that's probably a good idea. Do make a plan to counter deep fakes. Yeah, okay. Don't abuse voters' privacy by putting their information in AI bots. Okay. Do use AI for mundane internal tasks. I mean, maybe Mrs. Mathers is just lonely and really likes talking to interns, and maybe a bot would keep her happy for a while. I don't know, but it's an interesting article. If you're running for office, you might want to check it out, or you might want to check it out in general. Well, outside in the parking lot, the visionaries dress in the latest rage. Inside the backstreet, girls are dancing to the records that the DJ plays. And struggling in dark corners, desperate as the night moves on, is one Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaron.
Hello. Come to you from a very dark place today. I seen some very dark comedy last night, and it's changed my whole outlook on life.
Was it Bill Burr, John Mulaney?
If anybody wants to know who it is, they can write in, and I'll let them know. I'll tell you after the show, Doug. Okay. Today's professional commentary is inspired by an article in SC Magazine, 6 Common Developer Security Fails That Lead to Cloud Risks. Exciting stuff, I hear you say. Well, it is to them lead cloud developer type people, I guess. Okay, anyway, I've dropped it down to 5 and added my own thoughts. So off we go. Integrating security controls from the beginning and during the development process, aka shifting security left. Do you know, I haven't heard that term in ages after hearing it forever. Is everybody still shifting left, or have we moved right, or we center? Who knows? Shifting security left has improved enterprise security in a systematic way. However, cloud security has become an extremely complex challenge because nobody knows what they're talking about. That's introduced new risks and allowed attackers to use old methods with a new twist. Between the unprecedented scale of the cloud resources and the fact that security teams rely heavily on developers to apply security policies in the cloud, complexity at scale has become the fundamental nature of cloud security. While most cloud developers care about security, oh yes, they do, even the best of them are likely to do something that causes an exposure that they didn't expect. Here are some of the more frequent security mistakes developers make, so you can stop making them. Social engineering, who knew that would be in at number 1? Here's why cloud developers need to be aware. Access to sensitive data. Cloud developers often have access to sensitive data and systems. Social engineering attacks could trick them into divulging credentials or sensitive information. So that's why it's more or less number 1, right? System integrity. A successful social engineering attack can compromise the integrity of cloud systems, leading to potential data breaches or system failures. Financial losses. Social engineering attacks can lead to substantial financial losses for organizations, especially if the sensitive customer data is compromised or if there is a disruption in service. And of course, reputation damage. A breach resulting from a social engineering attack at Las Vegas can damage an organization's reputation, leading to a loss of customer trust and potential consequences. Next one, this is a good one, and I know nearly all my dev friends are involved in this in some way, shape, or form at some point in their career. Burnout, human error. Productivity. Burnout can lead to a significant decrease in productivity. Exhausted developers may struggle to maintain their usual pace, leading to delays and missed deadlines. Also involved in that, quality of work. When developers are burnt out, the quality of their work often suffers. This can result in more bugs and errors in the software, which can be costly to fix and lead to security vulnerabilities. Health and well-being, care about that these days, even with our devs. Burnout affects not just work performance, but also the physical and mental health of developers. Chronic stress can lead to serious health issues, including anxiety, depression, and even cardiovascular problems. And also retention. Look, if people are burnt out, they're just going to leave, aren't they? But then it leads to innovation. Burnt out developers are less likely to be creative and innovative. The exhaustion can stifle the creative problem solving that is essential for developing new and improved cloud solutions. How human error. If you're tired, things go badly, right? Yes. Okay, next one. Hidden information in code, in a file, or on a disk. If a company used a developer who repeated passwords and or keys instead of using a vault, there are secrets that can be found somewhere in the environment. Even if developers are more careful now, most companies have old secrets that are accessible in their cloud. The job of getting rid of these secrets and preventing such bad practices from happening again is challenging, definitely worthwhile. Next one. Challenges with detailed access management. Implementing detailed access controls is an effective security measure, yet the ongoing upkeep and modification during app dev is a demanding endeavor. Over time, the task of managing these detailed controls can become so cumbersome that developers might opt for broader, less specific controls. It happens, guys. Although this choice is comprehensible due to its simplicity, it typically leads to excessive access permissions being granted. Artificial intelligence, it's everywhere, has the potential to assist in this area, but it's important to note that AI introduces a distinct array of security concerns in the cloud environment. Look, if you don't look at your AI code, it's going to have holes in it. Even more than my code, I guess. Okay, on to the risks of AI powered code assistance. The reliance on AI powered code generation tools such as Copilot is on the rise amongst developers. This tends to bring to light a novel security concern, the emergence of malevolent AI. What a term. Developers tend to place a high degree of trust in their AI coding partners, often incorporating their code suggestions without fully grasping the potential consequences. If a malicious entity were to seize control of these AI tools, it could stealthily implant harmful code into numerous global code repositories, just like what Doug talks about every weekend, coding DLLs and all that cool stuff. Such code would appear authentic, having been integrated and deployed by legitimate developers, yet it would jeopardize an untold number of systems. Okay, I say this all the time. Security leaders should expect a breach or expect it's already happened to occur and prepare accordingly. The paradox of dealing with cloud risks caused by humans is that even though we know the possible ways of attack, the details are unpredictable. There are hardly any patterns. If there were, well, we could use AI to automate the incident response, can't we? So automation can help a lot to improve cloud detection and response in terms of speed, quality, and focus. But clouds risks are caused by humans and show up as machine anomalies. This is a situation that many securities teams are still adapting to. But once they find those anomalies, they can fix them. Well, we can hope so. Anyway, so as Dr. Doug said, or Alan Kay, I can't really remember, in the world of software, the best way to predict the future is to invent it. Back to Doug in the home studio. Peace out, party people.
Yay. Thank you, Aaron. I think it was somebody besides me, but who knows? Anyway, and finally, probably you won't remember this, but this is a little different, but 35 years ago, a classic movie was released. It was called UHF, and it starred Weird Al Yankovic, if you've never seen it. So in honor of this, Shout Factory is releasing an ultra Blu-ray of the movie to make it available in 4K. They said they would do a 4K scan of the 35 millimeter negative and add commentary from Weird Al and the director, Jay Levy. I mean, if you ever wanted to be able to count Weird Al's nose hairs in a film, well, now's your chance in high def. And I thought it was ironic because it's like 4K is the exact opposite of UHF. It's like the counterpoint. The movie is funny if you've never seen it, and it has Weird Al playing all the, it's all these like sketch bits with him like satirizing stuff like, like Weird Al's face plastered on Sly Stallone's body and Rambo kind of, stuff. The film was a flop, as you might expect, but it was one of those videos that you went and rented when like you went in there and you wanted to rent something else and they didn't have it. Yeah, and it was just like, what is that? And they're like, I don't know, some weird movie, and you like rented it, and then you thought it was actually pretty good. If you don't know what UHF is, it refers to those weird channels that you might have had on your antenna-based television if you're old enough. Like, we had, channel 4, channel 6, channel 10. But then there was this weird little dial up at the top of your TV that had all these weird channels like 26 and 32 and 24. And, you didn't know what it was for, and like usually it was just static, but then like all of a sudden you found public access shows like the Great White North and the City Council Forum and PBS and all this kind of stuff. That's UHF. That's what it means. But, I guess if you have to explain the joke, you actually are the joke or something like that. Anyway, I will next be live at the Millennium Alliance in Dallas, Texas on the 21st at the Fairmont. So if you are going to be there or you want to come, check it out. And that is the news. Thank you, Aaron, and we will see you next time on the Security Weekly News.